an online simulation game which seeks to mirror real life horse racing, and I think it does a pretty good job. It's got a couple hundred players as a result, nearing its 20th anniversary. The game mirrors real life on a 1 to, is it 1 to 1,000, Dan?
It is 1 to 1,000.
1 to 1,000. So just as there was the $1 million Santa Anita Derby this past weekend, Horse Racing Park had the $1,000 Santa Anita Derby. So there is real money at stake in the game. You can breed your own horses, race your own horses. But I have a feeling if you're listening to this, you probably know all of that. I'm going to skip the part where we kind of try to explain everything and just kind of assume that we have an audience that's familiar with the technical language that we'll be using. So that said, if you'd like to join us on Railbird Radio, send site mail to Patterson Stables or to MB Stables. Even if you don't want to join, you just have comments or questions. Let us know. We'd be glad to hear what you've got to say. And our other host is Fractious. He's not going to be with us tonight, but he'll be here for episode. We're calling this one Pilot. Dan and I have never made a podcast before, so we're just going to kind of roll through this and see how it goes. So
Yeah, that's the
plan. Go ahead, Dan.
I said, yeah, that's the plan. And just to echo Ryan's statements, we're very open to getting feedback from the community about topics, questions, anything you want to cover. We wanted to make this sort of a fun add-on experience for the community to talk about the topics and races and all that happens at Horse Racing Park.
Yeah, and I think it will help stimulate conversation. The forums have been a little dry here lately.
Mm-hmm. Horse racing is a game of patience.
Yes, it is, and I need more of it. But anyhow, we'll jump into the major prep races this past week. And why don't we start with the Santa Anita Derby? I think you had Killer Instinct. And what would you have to say about the race?
Yeah, so I had two entries in that race. I had Dwindle, who had already won Dead Heated to win the Gotham, so he had enough points to be in the Derby. But I also had Killer Instinct in that race, and Dwindle's a horse who he's been up and down. When he's on, he's looked unbeatable, but when he's off, it's kind of confusing. So I sort of knew going into the race that he hadn't been working as well as he had been recently, so I wasn't as sure. And I usually will, I'm pretty comfortable throwing 2 or 3 horses in a Derby prep because if I feel they're talented and worth it. And Killer Instinct's a horse who's been good as a 2-year-old. I've always wanted more from him, so I threw him in there too, and I gave it a shot. At this point, everybody can see that they finished, I think it was 5th and 6th, but it was an interesting race. And so the winner, your friend, I believe, GDP.
Yeah, GDP.
Pluxy.
A gentleman and a scholar.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about Pluxy and what GDP and your relationship with him.
I met GDP over at Turfway Park. He's the video master. I named a horse video master. We are stables won a Breeders' Cup race. No, he didn't win a Breeders' Cup race, but he did win a Grade 1. Very nice horse. Yeah, but GDP Inc. He's the video master. He's been playing for several years. I referred him to the game, and at the time, I kind of just dabbled with Horse Racing Park. It was a totally different game than it is now. There was much less information available. It was much more searching in the dark with a flashlight, so to speak, than it is now in regards to the information that was on offer to consider the decisions that you would make. And GDP just really took to it, and I saw he's winning Grade 1 races, and he's winning he's winning big races. And I thought, why don't I get more involved in the game? And I have, with far less success, but it's been fun nonetheless. And GDP is a very good friend of mine. I remember we went to Keeneland one time. He asked me to go, and I didn't want to go. And we go down there, and Keeneland's great once you get there. And I met someone that I ended up selling a website to. So you never know who you're going to run into. The butterfly effect, I guess. Anyhow, Pluxy, perfect trip in my opinion. Couldn't have gone better for him.
Yeah, I mean, when you like I think everybody knows by now, if you draw well, if you draw the rail in these races, main things that you don't want to do is be buried way behind or be rushed way out front, because it's sort of giving up that perfect spot that you know that you're going to be the horse on the rail no matter where you position yourself.
One thing
So
I noticed with Pluxy was the first couple of jumps, he was perfectly in range,
yeah,
saving ground.
I think he broke better than my two horses. I think he broke in the second set. It was I think White Sunshine, the outside horse from Smoky Stover. He broke really fast out of the gate coming over. I think Suspect did as well. It was sort of a strange beginning of the race. There was some sort of change, like a lot of horses were sort of after the first furlong or so trying to lunge up into position, and probably a lot of people on aggressive instructions. That's been the theme lately around Horse Racing Park, is you got to be close to the pace to do well. And that really benefited Pluxy, because coming into the race, I have to be honest, he was not the one I was worried about. I was worried about the horse next to him, Hut Dog. I was worried about the filly from Dom, who had, DJC stables we'll get into later. He got two horses in the Derby earlier in the day, and then I felt his best chance was sitting in the Santa Anita Derby. So it was an interesting race, a disappointing one for me, because my horses did not fire well. Killer Instinct fired, but he was so wide that he was never going to win. He didn't get Pluxy's trip, so sometimes that happens. But GDP's been on fire. He won the Gulfstream meet, I think, right? So
Yeah,
um,
he's doing quite well. He's high in the breeder standings as well.
this horse, he just broke his maiden the middle of March on turf, and comes here, grade one, takes it down. Now he's in the Derby. So that's what everybody dreams of doing. And GDP's had he started to do this a lot, especially in the distance races. There's something about his horses, probably with his breeding program, that they always get that last furlong when some really don't.
Yeah, he's got a lot of stamina influences in the back there. I remember him telling me about Model American, and then the next time I hear about Model American, it's you praising him and Howl of the Hounds pedigree. And I want to mention two things before I forget. I spoke off air before we got started. When you look at Pluxy, his last public workout was March 8th, and then he broke his maiden March 16th and came back and won this Santa Anita Derby on April 9th. And the big difference we noticed is there were no add-ons. So there's probably something that happened between February 6th and March 16th, those two races, when he had the Lasix, and then he didn't for the maiden win. I imagine this horse has very nice farm works, and that's an
Yeah,
element here when you're trying to consider who can win. You can kind of show much little of your poker hand as you want.
yeah, yeah. Like I'm the type of stable that I show my cards. I work at the track, I'd say 95% of the time, so you sort of know what you have when you're facing me. But yeah, with a horse like this, you have to figure that there's farm works that have been telling him, like, yeah, maybe he'll break his maiden on turf, but if he ever gets a chance in a distance race, send him there. And clearly a good move. And I want to mention Ideal Info, the horse who got second, who I think squeaked into the Derby. I think he might be in 20th, or yeah, I think 20th on the standing. So he's 20th. He's right there on the cut line with the Lexington coming up, but he ran massive because he made a middle move in the race from like four back to go right on the lead, and he hung on late. So take nothing away from him. That was a really impressive one that I think Chris Fractious bred. So
Yeah, he did breed that one, and the horse ran wide much of the trip. The winner didn't have to wheel wide till around our turn. That was something I noticed when I watched the race, which is something you have to do if you're going to have success here. Is there are things that you'll notice on the viewer which will tip you off to this or that. And one
yeah,
last thing I wanted to talk about with the Santa Anita Derby, you mentioned Dwindle, his work as good as you might like right now. Part of being a good trainer is being sensitive to these form cycles. It's something that I have very little experience with, yet I understand that it's part of the equation. What would you have to say about being sensitive to your horse's form cycles?
yeah. So it's interesting. I think some horses can handle anything. They sort of they could run off of 2 weeks rest. They could run off of, a 3-month layoff, and they're going to bring their A game. But there's some horses that they're really particular about. They want to start every 4 weeks or 4 to 5 weeks. You need to get their weight right. And I just, I think with Dwindle, I got caught up right after he won the Nashua last year. I was just thinking, wow, this is a really special, talented horse. He has these great bloodlines. He has a lot of speed. And I wasn't paying close attention to how much weight he was losing from races. And then after the poor performance,
he is rather thin for a 16-3.
Yeah, and I mean that's because, let's see, if I go in, he lost 30 pounds from the Santa Anita Derby. So, and that may not sound a lot, but in this game, losing 30 pounds from a race is a lot.
I can hardly remember ever seeing a horse lose 30 pounds.
It's pretty rare. There's certain types of horses that lose a lot, and I wanted to run him last week in I forget which race. I think I entered him in the Risen. No, it wasn't the Risen Star. What was the? I forget which race I entered him in last week. Anyways, he drew the 14 post. I decided to scratch. I think it may have been the Jeff Ruby, but I decided to scratch. It might have been a bad decision. He may have come in with a little bit too much time between races, a little bit too much work. So, yeah, I got to go back to the drawing board and see if I can get his form back going.
Yeah, we got the big races coming up, so he got his bad race out of the way. Now he'll do a little better at Churchill Downs.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk about the Wood Memorial, which was contested on a muddy track, and the winner was Up in Smoke off the purchase from Jive Inc. for Fractious. Horse really blasted off at the end.
Yeah, that was really impressive. I think Up in Smoke's horse. He was a horse who flashed as a 2-year-old. He won the Del Mar Futurity wire to wire as a 2-year-old. So he had speed.
From the 10.
Yeah, he's very talented. But I think that with any horse, really, at Horse Racing Park, every race you come into, there's a different set of horses you're facing, a different set of owners who are going to try different tactics. And some people don't love this part of the game, but it's just the reality right now that you need to figure out a way to adapt to what you're going to see in a race. And I think that Chris really did a great job with this race to let Up in Smoke get into a solid position. There was a pretty hot pace up front. I think that, so I was on it, and I know Brian from Arundel Farms, he was on the pace too. We both had the same idea, which is sort of try to keep the horse clean. The clean horse wins in the mud, right? So we both tried it, but we kind of cooked each other a bit. And Chris's horse set off the pace this time, and you could tell he loved the mud, because once he got free in the final furlong, it was race over within 2 strides. So,
and the top 2 from there are going to make the Derby, right? There are enough points.
Yes, I think so. The second place finisher was Federation. Yeah, Federation from DJC, who sneaks into 18th. It looks like he came from far back. I think he was not part of the early pace, I don't think. And
yeah, he was 9th by 8 lengths at the half mile and just made a steady bid to be clearly second best.
You don't see that a lot. I mean, sometimes you see it in the mud, because you'll see certain horses that are bred for the mud. They just love it, and they're going to run no matter what. There was a few horses in this race who made big runs in the mud, but nothing like Up in Smoke. He really was in a class of his own. And I think that after last weekend with Florida Derby, with Mr. Pancake dominating in the mud, now Brian has to be coming in thinking, okay, there's a horse in here, if it's muddy, that I might have to watch out for. It's not going to be as easy as the Florida Derby. So that'll be fun if it does rain on Kentucky Derby Day, which it has quite a few times in the past.
An interesting sire on Up in Smoke, Marry Me Mandy. That's the sire of Howell the Hound, correct?
It is. Who he ran pretty well in the mud that day too. He was a little wide in the Carter, got second to a nice horse, but I think that there's some mud breeding in that pedigree, and clearly worked last year getting Howell the Hound to win the Derby. So Up in Smoke's going to be dangerous for sure. Yeah,
and it looks like Marry Me Mandy has some services available in New Mexico for $10 in the current quarter. I'd say that you could do worse than that.
Yeah, I think Howell the Hound's dam is up for at least 2. You can make your own full sibling. I tried to get a full sibling. Wasn't the fastest. Wasn't as fast as Howell the Hound, so I don't know if I'll do it again. But
Yeah, we tried that with individuation. Your Sunland Derby winner, and it came out looking good, but couldn't really run very well, unfortunately. Sometimes you
Yeah,
catch lightning in the bottle, but it's pretty rare.
I find that the siblings they tend to be good breeders, but it's rare that you strike gold twice in this
Right.
game. The same combo. It does happen. There's cases of multiple graded stakes winners coming from the same combination, but I think that with horses like Howl of the Hound, Individuation, those are special horses. If you hit
Right.
two of those a year, you're the breeder of the year. So
Right. So the other prep race we had was the Bluegrass Stakes, where DJC Racing Stables did even better. He won.
yeah, and this is the race everybody was whispering about all week. I think the Brian sort of set the tone on the forums, saying "Come get me" with "Say Bye Bye," the filly he had entered in there, and then
Say bye bye. I've got a half sister or a full sister to that one. I can't remember which. And she was a fast pre-race worker. I thought, oh man, look at Say Bye Bye, and this one's unraced and looks like an even better. And she can't
yeah,
race
I,
tough,
I
of
actually
course.
I
That's
have a
how it
full
goes
sister.
sometimes.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I have a full sister to her too, who I think is I don't know if it's a grade one, but she was a graded stakes winner in a Story to Tell. So really good family. But out of the gate, I was shocked because it wasn't Say Bye Bye going to lead. It was his stablemate Key Hunt
Yeah,
from
it's
the
Key Hunt,
outside.
nice horse. And I
Yeah, very.
remember I'm musing to myself about that race earlier today, and I thought, well, the saying goes, all is fair in love and war. So I can't really blame Arundel for trying those art of war tactics in the forums.
Yeah,
Uh, but
I can't
unfortunately, it didn't work out.
I can't knock it. It's a good strategy. I think that we all have to be ready for people to do whatever they're going to do. But unfortunately for Key Hunt, I think that because he had some pace pressure from Gigabyte, who is a fantastic horse, who he ended up running a tough second, I think, in this race. He's going to get into the Derby from that. With the pace pressure, Key Hunt, he's a great horse, but I think he's more of a grinder. He's just been so unlucky to get these outside draws where the only thing he can do to save any ground at all is to go forward. So I heard he might be going back to turf, but it wasn't the plan to work out here for Brian, but it was for Dom for DJC Racing Stables with Changing Times, he's been a fast worker for a long time. He started off turf sprinting, and now he's really getting into form at the right time. And I think he ran a very impressive race. He was actually the only winner of the weekend who didn't settle on the rail, which I think is a big deal. A horse who can be, even if they're in the two path, the three path in the Derby, it's going to be very hard to get to the rail, and you still need to be able to make that run. So that was really impressive.
Yeah, I noticed two things with the pedigree of this horse. First of all, it's the second stakes winner for Moment in Time, who has to be one of the most exciting sires in the game. He's got Distant Cousin running through the sire side, and his dam was Wuthering Nurse, and he was a stakes winner himself. You really can't ask for more than that. And I've tried to have him produce horses for me, and I've been lucky a time or two. I've got a colt named Bitcoin is Freedom, who dead heated for second behind an Arundel runner in the Singletary Stakes a week ago. And just a quick side stop here on the breeding. I'm really excited for Mo Time. I think he's going to be one of the best sires in the game going forward. And then on the bottom half of the page, you have Milk and Cookies, who I've had success with and was able to put a gelding in the Preakness last year named Baller Alert. I just
Mhm.
typed in a song name there, and he was unable to get it done. But nonetheless, you're seeing a lot of production from Milk and Cookies.
Yeah, I think this is with Moment in Time. He's a sire who I think that sometimes you need to get the right amount of interest from the outside public and internal interest, because with the competitive nature of everything going into the sire list, it's so important to not only be able to like have your own support in your own stable, but also others supporting you with buying covers and filling out their books every quarter. He's a horse he's done well with some opportunities so far, and he's sort of like what I would say is DJC Racing Stables Dom. He's a great guy. I've known him for a while. He's very meticulous with his breeding, and this is 5-6 years in the making to combine Niagara, Distant Cousin, and Whispering Nurse, and all these awesome horses. These are the best horses he's had for half a decade, and putting them together into this one sire who can make one of the Derby favorites. I mean, that's what everybody's trying to accomplish here. And
Yeah, you've got three absolutely rock solid generations with him when you use him as a sire. And that's something we're seeing now in the game that we haven't seen yet, which is these horses that are just bulletproof, 3-4 generations of their pedigree. Whereas in the past, you'd see, I don't want to say a particular horse's name, but there may be great sires, but not good runners. And you're seeing less of that. You're seeing sires that can run and they throw.
Yeah, and in like the second place horse, Giga by his dam is Giga Factory, who is Hot Summer's dam, who was an Oaks horse last year, and a very talented Greatest Stakes winner. So there, these days, there's a lot of established pedigrees out there, and it's giving people a huge advantage into getting into, especially these type of races, because the only horses who are making the Derby are the most talented, most precocious, with the best traits. You have to really check every single box, and I think that's when having that upgraded pedigree with the class in multiple generations is making a huge difference now in the game.
Without a doubt. So we've covered the 3 Derby preps, and you wanted to talk about some of the Oaks races. I didn't have as much time to pay attention as I would have liked this weekend, so I don't have much to say myself. But why don't you talk us through the Gazelle?
Yeah, sure. We were going to cover it briefly because I did win the Gazelle, so I didn't want to talk too much about my own race. But Wander's been a horse who's been very good for me for a while. Kind of a 2-year-old who got off to a hot start, but then struggled in some races. So I put her back on turf, and she's done okay. But luckily, I worked her on dirt in time to realize I was making a big mistake running her on turf, and she's really a dirt horse. And now she's won the Busher, she won the Gazelle. She's been heading in the right direction. And another one who I think maybe the names of the pedigree are not the first names you'd think coming out of my barn, but definitely some of the better bloodlines I have in my barn. So I'm really excited to have her, to see that she can handle the mud is a big deal too, because you never know if these races are going to be an off track, and you need to be able to have that in your back pocket in case it happens. So that's a big deal. And then let's see, the second place finisher in that race, Maui County for Smokey Stover. She came from, I think she was last at some point, or maybe she was second to last. So she made a huge closing move. I think that with the Oaks, it's tough because the second place finishers tend to finish just outside of the money. I'm not sure if she's going to be one of the ones who gets in the race, but she made a big move too. So it was as you sort of predict in the mud track races, it's a matter of in the final furlong, you figure out who really still has it, and you see that's the difference. Who are the ones who like the mud? Who are the ones who don't?
Being by Zakowski, who Smokey Stover decided to keep all of those covers for himself this quarter. He's got high hopes for that one, I'm sure. And Wander, you mentioned her pedigree. She's got I'm Coming Home through the coin flip. Isn't I'm Coming Home the damn Horse of the Year Snow Peak?
Sorry, I missed what you said there. I'm Coming Home. Yeah, so
that's Snow Peak. Yeah, that's a huge pedigree.
Through coin flip. Yes. I thought you were talking about her dam. Yeah, so she's the dam of Snow Peak. And coin flip was a really talented horse too. He won a Grade 1 race actually. I think he won the Breeders' Futurity, and he's been a really nice sire for me. I mean, it's weird. He tends to produce really good fillies, and there's something about that where I like sires who produce good fillies. But he's a Precise Performances sire, and he comes from sort of a different background. He does have Charlie Farley in there, but he comes from the 5 Daddy 5 line, which is mostly dormant, but coin flip is trying to keep that flame alive. So he's an interesting look. I never price him too high. I think he's at $4 or $5 this quarter. He's worth a look. If you're looking for a sire, actually I have him at $2.49. So he's quite a bargain, I think, at this point. And Wander's the type of nice filly that he's been putting out.
Yeah, and
ones
I'm
who
not sure how much the AEI stands up to the mustard test at HRP, but let's assume it's good. Then his 188 is very strong.
Yeah, that's a pretty good number. I mean, that's telling you that he's out producing his his level of production per horse 2 to 1 to the average horse, which that's pretty much where the top sires line up. The ones who get a lot of covers, maybe it gets a little bit weighed down because their horses tend to get retired more often, and
Right.
there's a lot of things happening there, but he's a really nice sire, and of course I was excited to win that race, and it sort of kicked off my day, and I was hoping to relay that into some Derby prep wins, but I couldn't, unfortunately. Too tough there.
Can't win them all, Dan. I won a maiden special weight at Golden Gate this weekend and was thrilled.
Yeah. Hey, I still get excited when I win at Turfway, or Turf Paradise, sorry.
Right, and that's part of what adds to your success, I'm sure, is being able to, have the curiosity and excitement of any given race.
Yeah, in this game, everybody has different goals. I think we're talking about Derby and Oaks races, but there's some stables that they're not playing for the Derby and Oaks. They're playing for the Breeders' Cup. They're playing for the turf route races. They're playing for their new 2-year-old stallion or 2-year-old freshman sire who's got only 2-year-olds in these 4.5 furlong races. There's all different types of races to compete in, and that's
You've
what
got
makes
the
it.
wonder of what could be with those stallions.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
was there another Oaks prep that you wanted to cover?
Yeah, so there was 2 more. I thought the Santa Anita Oaks probably was not as strong of a Oaks prep. That one was won by Viable Tactics from my stable. She ran really well. She's a lightly raced horse. I think she got a perfect trip and really benefited from that because
And folks, that is so much of what we're talking about with this game. The trip is everything.
Yeah, she settled into a good spot, and she was aggressive at the right time of the race, which is somewhat luck, somewhat instructions, somewhat what jockey you pick. There's sort of a combination of all those that you have to work out for each horse to figure out what works best with them. But she got the jump on Poison Candy, and that really made the difference in the end. But I thought the Ashland was maybe the striking one, which was a race on Friday where Derby Connection won for Two Hearts, One Love, his first graded stakes win, his first grade 1 win, and she won by 3 lengths in a big field too. Some really good horses in that field, and she dominated. So that's one to watch.
Two Hearts, One Love, one of the better breeders that we've seen in the game.
Yeah, and he's I talked to him quite a bit. He's a good guy, and he sort of changed his tune recently to say, I'm going to keep some of these horses and try to race them myself and see what I can get. And
yeah, I think unfortunately he myself has discovered there just isn't enough of a market.
Yeah,
for good horses.
And this is one of those things where in future episodes, these sort of topics will be the discussion because we're not always going to have these major races to talk about, but the sire market, the buyer's market, where the game's heading, those are the sort of conversations we want to have on this show. And if there's anything that interests the general public about that, feel free to chime in or come on the show if you want to discuss a topic. We're always open to that too.
Absolutely. And we're coming up on our 29th minute here, so I'm going to look to be wrapping it up. This was kind of like our first time back in the gym after not going for a year. It was maybe a little painful. We're going to be tired at the end, but we're going to round into form here like these horses as we get through these podcasts. And we'll have Chris from Fraxis with us next time.
Yes, we hope to have Chris on for most episodes and make this a regular thing. We're not sure how often we'll do it. We're hoping to do it weekly, but with our schedules, we don't know if we'll be able to pull it off every week, but hopefully more regularly, and we'll be able to cover a wider range of topics.
Absolutely. And is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap it up here?
I don't think so. I think I'm just excited to keep on going with this podcast. I think one of maybe a future thing to look into in one of our next weeks, we'll probably start to cover maybe who we feel are going to be some of the favorites in the Oaks and Derby. Now that the fields are going to be finalized after the Lexington's the last prep that gives points for the Derby, then we'll know definitely who are the horses who are going to be in and out. We can start talk a little bit about who are the pace factors, who are the favorites, who's training well. That's an exciting time every year for me, and I know for a lot of stables. So that will be fun to talk about. And I know, Ryan, for you, breeding will be a big thing coming into the race, talking about where all these horses are coming from.
Yeah, I've unfortunately had a bit too much time to invest in learning the actual pedigrees. It's almost embarrassing, but we'll see how that goes. And I may be experiencing confirmation bias here, but man, I think individuation is going to be a tough hobby. I bred a lot of 2-year-olds last year, and he was head and shoulders the best in my barn throughout.
Yeah, he's an exciting horse. I was so lucky to have Howl of the Hound last year. Really spoiled to have such a talent, and I thought this year for sure. I felt that my colts in general, were a bit weaker, and I think that played out in the Derby preps. That I didn't have as much depth in the open races. But when I purchased individuation, I could see right away that he was special. He has a gear that most horses don't have, and he can get distance. I still, the one weakness is he's lightly raced, so I'm not too sure how he's going to handle certain tactics, especially in a 20 horse field. That's really tough. But talent wise, he's exciting.
He's kind of like a Bodemeister.
Yes, he do I want him to be winging it on the lead in the Derby? Maybe not. Maybe. I'm thinking about it. There's definitely some reasons to think the lead's been better in this game recently, but he's done well right up on the pace. He's done well off of it. I think he's just one of those horses where I know last year with just coming so close to winning the Triple Crown, I'm wondering how I'm going to be able to do it again. I feel like I tried to find the next Howl of the Hound, and he was my try. And knock on wood, it's looking pretty good so far. So we'll see.
All right. Well, thanks for getting on here and having this chat with me tonight. We'll have to do it again soon.
Yeah, definitely. Look forward to it, and I'll look forward to hearing from everybody else.
All right. Thanks for listening, folks.